Welcome to Cape Media News. This is Candid Candidates, and I'm sitting down with Chris Flanagan, representative for the 1st Barnstable District. Chris, thanks for being here today.
Mitch, thank you so much for having me.
So we're just looking to get to know the candidates a little bit, kind of outside of the point-by-point policies, what you have done, what you want to do. Just I want to get to know you and your political background. So what can you tell? First, where are you from, and how did you get into politics?
So I live in South Dennis with my wife and 3 kids. We have a 4-year-old daughter and twin sons that are going to be 2. We met each other in D.C. When we were working for the federal government, and then I was living in Dennisport, but prior to that, I'm from Easton, Massachusetts originally.
Okay. And before running for state office, you were a selectman in Dennis, correct?
That's right. So I served on the Dennis Select Board for 5 years and served as the chair for 3 of those 5 years.
And what was your motivation to run for political office, starting with Select Board? What was the impetus to start that?
So that's a loaded question, Mitch. I'm going to go way back to my childhood. So my dad raised myself, my brother and sister throughout my teenage years. My mom had passed from cancer when I was 13, and so was raised in a single-parent household after that. And I remember feeling a lot of things, right? Like that's, traumatic to experience when you're a teenager, but also you realize that things happen to people that are beyond their control. My dad had to take early retirement. He had some medical issues subsequently, and I really felt like there was a need for me to want to serve to help people and families like myself who were experiencing these hardships. So in college, I studied political science. I went to Emmanuel College in Boston and decided to pursue public service through the federal government. I worked for 2 U.S. senators from Massachusetts on the Hill in D.C., and then worked for the State Department, and then moved back to Massachusetts where my wife and I wanted to start a family, and there was a local select board vacancy. And so even though my experience was primarily at the federal level, I thought, I have this government experience. There's a vacant seat. I feel like I can give back to my community in a meaningful way. And so went and ventured into the waters of local government, and I learned a lot of lessons and important things. When you're so exposed to people, right? Like I remember when I was first elected and I sat up on the dais and there was a room full of people, I remember thinking to myself, what have I done? And then, you go to the supermarket and people grab you and they tell you about what their issue is. And I feel like the best thing that anyone can do, and I learned this particularly serving in local government, people just want to be heard. They may not necessarily agree with you on any given issue, but if you're willing to sit there to listen, and maybe they can change your mind, or maybe they can offer something that you hadn't thought of, I think is really the best thing that any of us can do as public servants.
And as somebody that has experience now in the state legislature and working on a select board, what are the similarities and differences between the local, or the town and the state level?
So what I loved about municipal government is so much of what you do is tangible. So, for instance, when we built the new DY middle school, that took years in the making for us to get there. But when we finally got there and we walked through those doors for the first time, I remember feeling like, wow, this is incredible that I played a very small part in this new school being built. And so with local government, it's so tangible. You can see it. With state government, it's different in the sense that it's less tangible, but you make more of an impact on people's lives directly. So what I mean by that is, as a state rep, people will call me when they're having issues with their unemployment benefits. They're having issues, affording college or finding a place to live. And when you're able to help them through that journey, that to me is like the whole reason why I'm in it, right? Is to be able to help people who live here. And that's a big difference. You help people personally at the municipal level too, don't get me wrong, but to be able to have resources to really make a meaningful change in someone's life personally is very fulfilling. So they're fulfilling in two different ways.
That's interesting. I would have figured it would have been kind of reversed in the way, like it being municipal, it'd be a little more individual. But I guess it's kind of counterintuitive there. It's all right. I know we have talked about before, but it's something I like to talk about with every Cape Cod politician that I can talk to, and it's the close-knit group of the Cape Cod delegation. Like, you guys seem to be kind of like an anomaly in the political world, that you guys can be so close-knit, so cordial, and working together so well, but being on opposite sides of the aisle. What can you tell us about working with your colleagues on your side and the other side of the aisle?
So for us, we always put Cape Cod first, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. And I feel like all of us, and I felt that way as a select board member, not being on the outside looking in, I always felt like, gee, everyone seems really cohesive. They seem to really want to help and understand that there's a larger regional picture. And then now being on the inside of it, everything that I felt was true and then some. I feel like Capitol Hill could learn something from us, right? Where nothing's personal with us. We're really just digging in on how do we help the Cape? How do we bring the most resources to the Cape? People joke that there's no parties, there's the Cape Party, right? I believe in that. And it harkens back to, I feel like, old school politics where there was a mutual respect and you didn't write someone off because of their party affiliation. And that really happens here. It's special.
Well, given that the national politics and even state politics to some degree are such a different animal than local level politics, what is it like when the delegation disagrees on something? Like how do you guys handle it internally? How do you handle those conversations? Because they got to be difficult conversations to have between some issues are very, very volatile.
Typically, when it comes to regional issues, we are like-minded or open-minded in terms of hearing other people's perspectives. Certainly, there are issues that are a little bit more political in nature, right, where we disagree. And there's also a mutual respect where we can disagree, and that's not a bad thing. Disagreement, compromise, those aren't bad things. And I think when you realize that you can be bipartisan, that you can realize that I might feel a certain way, you might feel something completely different, and we can coexist. That's a good thing, right? And so it never feels personal amongst us. We know that we're going to have different beliefs on different issues, but when it comes to the things that matter to those who live on the Cape that we represent, that prevails over anything else.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us, and we would love to have you back in the studio.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and thanks for having me. Always great to see you, Mitch.